They've wiped out civilizations, rewritten history, and still lurk in the shadows. But the worst part? They can mutate. Smallpox. For 3,000 years, smallpox was humanity's deadliest executioner. Airborne, relentless, and merciless. 30% of victims died. Survivors were left scarred, blind, or permanently disfigured, if they were lucky. When Europeans arrived in the Americas, smallpox became a weapon of mass destruction, erasing up to 90% of indigenous populations before a single battle was fought. Some reports even describe it as biological warfare, with infected blankets deliberately given to Native Americans. By 1980, after killing 500 million people, smallpox became the only human disease ever eradicated. But if it escaped a lab, the world wouldn't stand a chance. Rabies, a bite, a scratch, a single lick on broken skin. That's all it takes for rabies to turn your brain into a horror movie. It starts like the flu, then hijacks the nervous system. Muscle spasms, hallucinations, violent aggression, paralysis, and then hydrophobia. The brain loses its ability to swallow, making even the sight of water trigger unbearable spasms. Thirst turns to terror. Once symptoms appear, there is no cure. The rabies vaccine is the only escape, but it must be taken before symptoms start. Otherwise, 100% fatal. Ebola. Ebola doesn't just kill, it melts you from the inside. Spread through bodily fluids, it attacks blood vessels, liquefies organs, and in extreme cases makes victims bleed from their eyes, nose, and skin. Some outbreaks have reached 90% fatality rates. The 2014 outbreak killed over 11,000 people and nearly triggered a global catastrophe. There's no guaranteed cure. And if the virus mutates, it could wipe out entire cities. HIV. HIV jumped from chimpanzees to humans in the early 1900s, a silent mutation that reshaped history. Unlike most viruses, HIV doesn't kill directly. Instead, it dismantles the immune system, turning minor infections into death sentences. By the 1980s, it had exploded into a global crisis. Since then, 36 million people have died. Antiretroviral drugs turned HIV from a death sentence into a manageable condition. But there's still no cure. And if a new mutation emerges, everything could change overnight. Marburg virus. If Ebola is a nightmare, Marburg is pure horror. It spreads through body fluids, causing rapid organ failure, high fever, and massive internal bleeding. Victims don't just die, they drown in their own blood. Some outbreaks have reached 90% fatality rates. No vaccine, no cure, no second chances. Influenza. The flu is common, too common. But in 1918, it became a weapon of mass destruction. It infected 1/3 of the world's population and killed up to 100 million people, more than both world wars combined. Unlike typical flu strains, it didn't target the weak, it hunted the young and healthy. Their immune systems overreacted, flooding their lungs with fluid, drowning them from the inside. And the worst part? Influenza never left. It mutates constantly. The next pandemic? Not if, but when. Hantavirus. Some viruses spread through touch. Others? Through the air itself. Hantavirus, first identified during the Korean War, spreads through rodent droppings and urine. But you don't need to touch an infected animal. Just breathing in contaminated dust can be enough to kill you. Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome fills the lungs with fluid, suffocating victims from the inside. The fatality rate? Up to 50%. No vaccine, no cure, just a deadly lottery. Dengue virus. Dengue isn't just a fever, it's pure agony. Spread by mosquitoes, it infects 400 million people per year. Victims suffer high fever, joint pain so excruciating it feels like bones are breaking, internal bleeding, and, if severe, organ failure. And thanks to climate change, dengue is spreading faster than ever. Warmer temperatures allow mosquitoes to invade new regions, turning safe zones into breeding grounds. Some of these viruses are gone, some are waiting. And the deadliest ones? They're just getting started.
You're goddamn right.